The concept of managing your mind and the fact that you're not your brain comes down to this concept. If you think about it, your mind and your brain are like a computer. So if we think about your brain is the hardware. So if anybody has a computer, you have the hard drive and you have how there's memory in there and the computer actually does to process information. But our mind, which is the thinking part of our brain, is the software, is the programming that's been put in our minds from birth of what we've been taught. So if you can buy a computer at the store, but unless you load it with software and you have the right programs, things do not work. But here's the thing, just like computers, we get viruses, we get slow. Like eventually, if you do not purge the trash and you don't get rid of the junk that's slowing your computer down, you're eventually going to end up with a computer that either crashes, and I've had that a few times, which is so frustrating, or it just stops working. So if we understand that we can relate that concept to our brains, that the programming that you've been taught doesn't necessarily always work, and it might not necessarily be right for you or true. So how do we go about changing that practically? So, if you've been taught a certain mindset towards, let's say, because we're talking about prosperity, let's say if you've been taught a certain mindset around what it means to be prosperous, you take that story that probably resulted from the conversations you had around the dinner table with mom and dad. And if mom and dad had a different viewpoint of what prosperity and poverty looked like, that has basically been the programming that you've had that now brings into adulthood and directs the way that you make money choices. But here's the thing. What if you get challenged with another set of programming? What if you realize, I don't want to believe this programming, this is not necessarily suiting me anymore. How do I change that? So here's another example. Classically, people who win the lottery, the percentages of those who end up poor normally within a 5-year period is extremely high. And you must think why? Because you think the world is about making money and being prosperous. And when you have all the money and you have all the things, then life's going to be great. But there's a weird thing that happens when you achieve everything that you want to achieve. It's almost like the self-sabotage sets in. You start to feel uncomfortable and like, people are changing. People are treating me differently. All of a sudden, I have more money, or I have more fame, and now all of a sudden, I'm not on the same level as them, and they start to treat you differently. So what happens is people who have not done any mindset management end up then making decisions to actually sabotage their success because they haven't changed their mindset of what prosperity is. Do you hear what I'm saying? Because if you don't understand and look at the way that you're thinking, and that's why my whole focus on the way that I train and teach clients is on metacognition, which basically means thinking about what you're thinking about. Instead of just reacting, looking at yourself and saying, why is it that I think? Why is it do I believe this? Let me look at it and be like objective. And objectivity can be hard for some, especially when you're very determined on believing what you have that you believe. I mean, I can get into a whole nother rant on that story, but really what it comes down to is, challenging yourself on the status quo and asking the questions that start with why. Why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? Why would I react that way? And starting to have a, introspective look at ourselves. And then we know we can get down to doing the work that counts. And this is how power performance sets in, is when you can realize you can let go of things that no longer serve you, and you're willing and open, and you have a learner's mindset, then you can adopt new things and you can learn more, because we never stop learning. My grandfather always used to say, the day you stop learning is the day you die. So granted, I'm going to keep learning. And if it means even what I have learned, I have to challenge myself on being open and willing to learn these new things. And that's where, like the Bible says, being humble. If we are too proud to take correction, or too proud to say, hey, maybe what you believe isn't true, and we get offended, it's almost like nowadays everybody gets offense. It's like popular. It's the new thing to be offended, right? And what does offense do? It builds fences. It separates us from each other, and division. And the last time I checked, division and destruction was not in God's wheelhouse. It was in somebody else's wheelhouse, who tries to steal, kill, and destroy the vision, the seed, the purpose. So if we realize and we are able to take a step back and say, okay, God, give me the eyes to see and the ears to hear the truth of where you are in this situation, and be willing and humble and open to say, okay, how do I change this? And understand that it can be done. So going back to the concept of neuroplasticity, the good news is you can challenge yourself, you can challenge your brain, and you can do this through a process of what they call rewiring. Now, rewiring your brain is literally like if you were learning a new skill. So I'm in my mid-40s, okay, and I only decided to take up figure skating when I was my 30s. Now, as an adult learning a new skill, part of the problem was I had to unlearn things that I had learned from skills in dancing do not relate to the ice. You do certain things in one way, it works great. You apply the same mindset and tools to another environment, Not so great. Lots of falling and hurting yourself. But what I had realized is in order to override the ways and the old habits and muscle memory I'd created, I had to go over things again and again and again. It wasn't a once and done. It's a reiterative process. So just like if you're learning a language or you're learning how to drive, the young ones have the ability of, hey, I'm learning this for the first time. So they're imprinting for the first time. They don't have to challenge themselves. But this is why it's hardest as an adult to learn these things, because it's been in our programming for so long. So if you're willing and able and you allow, you work with God He shows you where the work needs to be done, and it might be hard and it might be uncomfortable. There probably will be tears, guaranteed, because we know that with anything without sweat equity isn't worth it. And it's like going to the gym. You are building your mind muscle, which means showing up every day, no matter how you feel, putting in the work. But the good news is, it can be done. But is it true? You don't have to believe every thought that pops in your head, because it's not necessarily true or useful. But we are not taught to be active thinkers. We're taught to be passive thinkers. In other words, just whatever comes along, just absorb and take in. It comes back from the way we were taught in schools, right? Teacher stands in front of the class, tells you what to do, and your job is just to take it in and accept it as truth. But the thing is, that doesn't always serve us as we get older, right? And if we are not taught, it's just like learning a skill, learning tennis, learning to play the piano, any kind of skill you need to learn, it comes with practice. So if you haven't ever been really aware of what you're thinking about, maybe today's the day to start doing it. And a simple experiment would be just to get a piece of paper, and every time you think of something, write it down. And that's why I love journaling, because first of all, using a pen and paper taps into your subconscious part of your brain, into what you're really thinking, not just the surface thoughts. And believe me, you read back what you're thinking, you're sometimes going to say, oh my gosh, do I really think that? Oh my goodness, do I actually speak to myself that way? And that's where objectivity comes from. But unless you actually, instead of just like drinking it in and saying, oh, this is true, this is true, this is true, question, write it down, feedback, right? Just like you're learning a lesson. Do the thing, record the thing, look back, and then look at yourself objectively and ask yourself, why do I think this? And is this true? And then you're on your way to reprogramming your mind. So I have some great resources for you. If you go to mimikacooney.com/supercharge, I have the 8 tips to supercharge your mindset. And also on my website, I have a podcast you can subscribe to. I regularly put out information in podcast episodes. And I have a tab that actually has articles and resources. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how rewiring the brain, how to unstick your mind, all this good stuff, definitely connect with me online, and I'd love to hear from you. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe. Hit the little bell button so you'll be the first to know when we release a new episode.